Cool. Well, okay, so we've got a pretty accelerated session here on recruiting basics, really looking for reps in all the right places, or at least we hope. And I have a very sensitive mouth, so forgive me for bouncing around. And I'm here with Annette from Annette, and we're going to take you through this some recruiting practices and perhaps approaches. And just to start, I think one of the things that we often hear when we talk to folks and they want to hire a seller, we hear things like, I really want to find a great super seller. I want to find a sales stud. I'm really looking for an experienced seller, one from, who has experience from another local media. Or I want a bright new hot shot, somebody who can get in there and just do the job and who's got lots of energy and enthusiasm. Or someone who's really experienced, so I don't have to worry about the sales end of my business at all. I can just get someone to manage that. And I think Annette and I have both heard all of these and several of them a number of times. And the challenges with all of those things, and I'm certainly not sharing anything that you aren't aware of, but the really big challenges are great professional sellers, experienced sellers who are really good at what they do, know their value as good sellers. Many are unattainable simply because of earning potential. And even entry-level sharp, recently out of college candidates are getting offers that include base salaries and benefits and high commission earning potential. And all of those things combined add an additional hiring challenge on the independent publisher and the small business owner in any market for any of those things. So what we hope to do today is to just talk through where and how to recruit an excellent sales rep, the skills and traits to look for, some life stage groups that perhaps you haven't looked at as options, and then also how to find ways to sell good candidates onto coming on board with you. And as a starting point to that, we thought we'd talk about Annette a little bit. I think everyone on the phone has certainly heard of the sales success at Annette. And it's no secret that success has been driven predominantly by Annette and the work that she has done there. And I think if you hear a little bit from Annette about her background, you may be surprised at how she came into the sales role and realized that she's not necessarily the list that's on your wish list when you're looking. She was drawn a bit differently. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annette, and Annette, just give us the history of you.
Okay, great intro, Eleanor. And let me preface this whole presentation with something that I feel that selling advertising for a hyperlocal website is very different from selling any other thing in my mind. I mean, I was very successful at this. We'll go into why. But if you asked me to sell furniture, I don't know if I could do it. It's almost a completely different animal, and we'll talk about what that is. So how did I get to become a salesperson in Annette? I have a master's in public health. I worked for AIG, Blue Cross Blue Shield of New York, MetLife at 1 Madison Avenue before it was a condo. I have a BA in anthropology from the University of Arizona. I worked, when I graduated from my undergrad, I actually didn't go into anthropology, but I did something a lot more fun. I worked in the travel industry, and I became a tour guide in California, gave tours up and down the coast, all over the Napa Valley, where I'm from the Bay Area. Then I moved to France because I could, and I basically thought outside the box. I go, well, if I can do this in San Francisco, I could also do it in France because I speak French. And so I contacted a guy who was like kind of our counterpart company, and I got a job in the office organizing tours for Americans coming to France. And that was very exciting to me because I love getting to know things. I'm inquisitive, I'm adventurous, I like to explore. So here I was in Paris, and I got to explore restaurants, sites, museums, meet new people, make all sorts of contacts by virtue of the business I was in. I'm also, so after that, I got my degree in public health, became a corporate person, and did that for about 10 years. Then I had my first child, and I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I stayed at home for 12 years. Then my husband got a job transfer to Manhattan from Washington, D.C., and my kids were older. They're all in Montclair Public Schools. I moved to this new, exciting, dynamic, diverse community. I couldn't have been happier. And I set out with the same MO that I had in Paris. I'm going to find out every fun thing to do, people to meet, places to go. And after about 9 months, my husband and I were talking about me going back to work, and he had heard of BaristaNet. And he said, you should hit them up and see if they need anyone to, write or report, and you know how to take pictures. I said, okay. So by happenstance, I ran into Liz George, who was one of the two owners, still is. And we talked informally at a community event, and she hired me on a trial basis to see how I would do. I started as a reporter and writer. The better I got, the more work they gave me. And I was out in the community reporting, writing, taking pictures, making contacts. I was the only person in Montclair that from Barista that people knew. They thought I was the owner, which is kind of funny. And that was a natural, organic segue into me becoming a sales representative and bringing revenue in, because I was making the contacts. I knew the businesses who were active and interested in our website, and I knew about our readership, and I made the natural connections. And Debbie and Liz started asking me to say, well, while you're out there, would you mind, seeing if you can bring in some ad sales? I said, okay, I'll do it. And that's how I became the ad person. I don't even call myself a salesman or a salesperson, because it's more than that. It's all about connection and community relations. So
I think it's really interesting too to just mention that Annette, you really had this affinity for the brand. You were out in the community. You started talking with people and saying, hey, I think you should be advertising on BaristaNet, or, you should be promoting your business through BaristaNet. It's like moving into sales was this natural evolution for you. It was because you were engaged with the brand. You believed in what you were doing. You believed in people needing to know about things that were going on in the community.
Yeah, and part of the reason I got engaged so quickly, I think, is because, and you'll get into this at a later slide, is that Debbie and Liz explained very well what BaristaNet was about, and it was very appealing and very exciting as we're reporting news as it happens. Instant news, accessible online. You don't have to wait a week for the weekly paper. You don't have to wait to go out to the parking lot at pickup and hear it from someone else, from another mother. We're going to report it soon. And it was all very vital information. I'll never forget, Liz says, Debbie said, we write about what people want to hear, not just your boring meetings or tax things or, like a local newspaper. And that was very appealing to me. So exciting news, exciting way to report it. I was in.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's probably a really good segue to go into what you identify as the skills and personality traits of a successful seller.
Sure. You have to do your research. You have to know your community, and you have to know about business. And my first thing is I like to be smarter than my prospective client. And by saying that is I bring something to the table. They think, I contact say, have they heard? If they've heard about BaristaNet, they probably have some kind of expectations. But I bring more than that. I tell them, about social media, about how effective it can be for them. I tell them about, maybe if they're new to the neighborhood, said, well, you got this neighbor down the street and this business up here, and their marketing synergies. I ask them what their business cycle's like, and I make suggestions for advertising based on that. I ask them what their high profit items are. I ask them what their low profit items are, and we see what we want to work on. So I think as a advertising person, representative for Barista, I'm also functioning as a community business consultant, because I know a lot of things just from living here, and that is a valuable asset. My clients call me up all the time and say, Annette, how do I do this? Or who can I talk to? Or I want to do this event, and who can I partner with? And that's, I'm honored and blessed that they think that I'm the fount of knowledge, but that's great. And so that you build you think outside the box, you engage with your client, on their level of business or who they are. And, I'm blessed that I speak French and Spanish, because there's a lot of Hispanics and French speakers in town. And I always, that's a nice point of reference and commonality. The person you hire has to be very self-confident, very articulate, not afraid to meet new people or seize an opportunity as it arises. I've sold many ads, not from meetings, but just bumping into people and saying, oh, I do this and you've got that business and I think it's a good match. Do you want to talk? And that's how we start things out. So I say a community-based person who is interested in a lot of different things, who has a business background, who understands that businesses, the limitations and the concerns of business owners, that you have to be sensitive to. So,
yeah, I think so. If I sum that up, there are a lot of things that are listed here, and then a couple of things that aren't here, Annette, but that I think you certainly bring to the table, and those are, somebody who's strategic, somebody who's enterprising, so somebody who's looking for an opportunity or a match, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think things like people with happy personalities, energy, all of those things, when you're hiring, those folks are also representing your brand community. So, those attributes and a personality are really important. And if they don't have great business experience, they need to have some business sense or some business sensitivity for sure. So, yeah absolutely.
And I'm never afraid to ask a question.
Right.
If there's something you need to know about a person's business cycle or what they do, just ask questions. The more questions you ask, the more ammunition you have to prepare a sales pitch.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, in identifying that great representative, Annette, you pointed to several things like, being well-rounded, and you've got some other things on this list you thought were important to bring.
Yeah. A lot of, I've actually tried to hire people to help me out, and we haven't made a strong effort at it, but it's certainly people come to the interview with expectations, that it might be a very structured salaried position. Well, it's not. It's more in our business, where we're selling communication, relationships, and business, and hoping to improve people's business and profitability in the community. You have to be a self-starter. You have to pay attention to what people tell you and and connect the dots. Someone can learn if someone has the right personality, no matter what age. That's possible to do. But I think you get a few bonus points when the person's, maybe a little older, has had some work experience out in the field, and is excited to be a self-starter, and also someone who understands your business. And that's one thing we talked about last time, is that a lot of business owners, blog owners, want to just hire someone and forget about forget about the whole sales revenue process. Just say, take it and run with it. But that's not a realistic way to handle your business, because it's a synergistic cooperation. The more they know about how you write, what you write about, who your audience is, and your constraints, the better they are going to represent who they can sell to, how they can identify a prospect list, which is what I call qualified. And you really have to work together. The best scenario, I think, is how I started, as doing some writing, some reporting, and selling. And then, I gradually morphed into 100% sales after 6 years.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, folks in these small businesses, and any small business, wear a lot of hats. So in recruiting, it's important to think about those hats that folks are going to wear and how you want to deploy them. I do think you absolutely have to have somebody who is articulate and who can easily converse. And you certainly want folks who are self-starters and self-motivated. They have to be courteous and respectful. They're representing your brand in the community. So, having sort of a hit list at the table when you're hiring, or almost like your checklist of skills, attributes, the things that you're looking for. Now, it's incredibly difficult to find somebody who's the whole package, but you can find folks who have a number of the skills and attributes that you're looking for.
Yeah, I wasn't the whole package when I started, but I learned a lot along the road,
Right.
And you absorb information and you process information. I mean, I didn't know much about social media when I started. And now, it's one of the things I have to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things we wanted to touch on as well were some candidate groups to consider that are often overlooked when we talk to folks about their hiring practices or who they're looking for. And so we wanted to talk through a couple of life stages, as well as some service industry employee opportunities. So some of the life stages are moms, retired sellers, community college grads, and grads living back home. And so there's a lot of caveats around this one that we'll dig into. And then service industry employees. The first one, really moms. And, as is illustrated by Annette, Annette was a stay-at-home mom with great professional experience and great life experience. And she made a choice to stay home for her family. And so many stay-at-home moms and many moms have left great workplaces and great professional careers because they've stayed home with kids. And many of them are also yearning to work but need some more flexible scheduling. I can't tell you how many moms that I have had do work for me who have said things like, really, I just want to talk to an adult like 5 hours a day, and I'll do anything that you have in this realm, but I need to see something that's not animated, and I need to not smell like things that come out of a baby for just a little while, and, see some value in my contribution. So many of them are yearning, but need some flexible scheduling. But if you think about the context of moms, particularly for a hyperlocal business, this is a group or a segment of population in your market that's incredibly invested in the community. They've got children in the community, so they're very invested in what's going on. Yeah. There is no network like a mom's network. I mean, they are incredibly connected and have a great pulse on what is happening. So if you can find a way to allow for some flexibility, independent contractor work and things like that, moms are a great target segment to go after and recruit. We'll talk a bit more about titling and what some of these folks need to be called or how you need to approach them as we progress.
And can I just add something that BaristaNet, all the people who started BaristaNet and work at BaristaNet are work from home, and we're all moms. We had kids in the community schools, and we all had had the incredible flexibility of working. I used to joke I work in my pajamas because my commute is literally one room away. But seriously, I mean, we just have the complete flexibility to be available to our children, to be available to whatever we have to do at home, but still be productive, and it's very convenient. So I think it's the ideal stay-at-home mom job.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I will just add a couple more sentences on this. I've hired several moms, and for a couple of projects that I did in Knoxville, we ended up having a pretty large network of moms that we deployed and used for everything from sales to marketing to events to everything. And they were great. And there are many times in meetings I would say, well, okay, so we're going to call the moms. The moms are going to do this, right? They were like their own entity. They did great work for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Another group that I think is is really often overlooked is retirees and retired sellers. So this can be an incredibly fruitful group, and again, regularly overlooked. But if you look at what they can bring to the table, generally they have a great work ethic. They've been through that life. They've been through working 60 and 80 hours a week. So they working 40 is not difficult. They have ties to the community. They typically have good reputations. They're professionals and experienced, so they've got good business sense and good professional experience, which makes them, in many cases, good stewards of the brand and the community. They can be incredibly loyal. Very often, this group can just hit the ground running, particularly if you get a retired seller or somebody who's retired and been in business and gets your product. So they need less coaching and less development and less hand-holding and less they can more so just tell them what you've got and they can go and get after it rather quickly.
Yeah, they'd probably be a good group who could identify the best potential advertisers really quickly. You know, this is a person you should contact. That's a company that needs to be online with you.
Mm-hmm.
They have kind of a good expertise in that area.
That's right. That's right. Many of these folks don't need a salary. So, what you face with folks who are just starting their careers or early on in their careers or who are raising families and are the primary breadwinner, you face the challenge of them needing a salary, of them being the basis or a really large portion of the family income, versus this group, which in many cases doesn't need a salary. They're happy to get those commissions, really excited about that. And, they can just be all in all great catches. So I personally, in hiring and managing some products, have had really good success with this group as well. Found them to be very take charge, and they just treated the products like they owned them, which for me in those segments was fabulous. And so for an independent publisher or small business owner, if you get somebody who treats your business like it's theirs, and offers, sort of that approach to their work ethic, it's very good for you.
Yeah, they have to love the product. They have to know if they haven't worked as a writer for you, they at least have to be a frequent reader and know about the personality of your blog and who you are and what you write about and what kind of readers you attract. And they have to just love it. If they don't love your product, they won't be successful.
That's right. That's right. And then another segment is community college grads, and grads that are living back at home with their parents. So I used to sum this up and say, look for B student community college grads, or those grads who've been away from school. They didn't have jobs lined up. They weren't recruited, and they're back at home living with their parents. So there are a couple of motivators from this group. Now, I say these segments because, the A students and the really achieving college grads got offers. They're out, they've got jobs, they were recruited early on out of school, et cetera. And so, and they fall into that segment we talked about in the first set of slides. They're being recruited with great salaries and great benefits and really, really significant illustrated earning potential. And so they're difficult to get. This group, however, there are some advantages to this group, and they have different motivations or collections of motivations. So if they're millennials or in this millennial group, there's a very significant factor with millennials around doing good, and wanting to have really good value from their contribution. They're interested in causes. They can see the greater good. Millennials also want to advance quickly, so they're incredibly impatient. Today they want to sell the place, tomorrow they want to be the CEO. But they are motivated in many cases by a possibility of ownership opportunity or some sort of profit sharing from their efforts. Now, keep in mind, I'm not making a recommendation that this is how you manage your business, but if this is a thought process that you have in your business, this is a group or a segment that is attracted to some of those opportunities. Now, for the college grads who are living back at home or didn't get recruited out of school, the B students, very often they can be looking for a leg up, right? They're looking for something to break into an industry and essentially a resume job. So you have to know with this group that you may have them for a year or 2 years. I mean, 2 years with this group is a long time. Mm-hmm. However, they'll do really good work for you while you have them. And if you can get that base established, and make sure that you've got a good organizational structure so that you can take advantage of all the calls they've made if they leave.
And it'll make it easier for you to find another person to fill the boots, you know?
That's right. That's right.
You'll have your baseline of advertisers, you'll have a history, and it will be a huge asset.
Yeah. I mean, I've had folks say things like, I don't want to hire these folks because they won't stay on board. They just come on board and they leave. And my response has been, having somebody who's with you for 12 months, who's going to go actively do the work and start to build your business and then leave after 12 months is certainly better than not having anybody for 12 months.
Absolutely.
So, now, this group also, if they can see future growth with you, if you envision that, if they can see growth and opportunity, they are attracted to that. And the other thing we mentioned was doing this greater good. So they are, particularly for independent local publishers, or those who are doing a cause, a content, or a tactical approach that's really related to cause or cause-driven. If you can articulate that cause, being really connected with local, making local happen, or the cause that you're to, and help them see that their work with you helps contribute to the greater good, it will in many cases help them justify signing onto a company where they have less earning potential out of the gate because they want to do good. But you have to be very clear about what your mission is.
And it is also creates a good work ethic for them when they're going out in the community and being your ambassador to convey this mission and convey the fact that it's a greater good. And it really does happen like that, because I think I got my largest client because he said, Annette, I really like what you guys are doing, and I know it's important. Mm-hmm. And that's happened many times, and it helps if they know they're supporting local journalism and in a constructive and positive way.
That's right. That's right. So another sector that we wanted to touch on is just service industry employees. And I love this group. I love this group for a number of reasons, but one of them is they typically have incredibly good people skills. They don't have a high fear factor. They're not uncomfortable talking to strangers. They do it all day, all night, whatever the job they're doing. They're very often looking for a way to break into a new industry. They're certainly familiar with earnings that are predominantly tips, so commission translates. And for you as the recruiter, it's really easy to spot their skills and personality traits. I mean, you can tell just from observing them and their work environment whether or not they've got some of the skills and attributes that you would like to bring on board with you. Another reason that I like this group is that many of them can establish some flexibility that helps them transition. So they can work, they can serve 3 nights a week and sell for you through the day, or pick up weekends, pick up a shift on the bar Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday night, to help them get additional dollars while they're building a book of business with you and breaking into a new industry. So again, if you can also offer them some flexibilities, I think they can very often pay off tenfold. But a group that I have recruited so many folks, from being out to dinner, being out with some friends, finding somebody that I thought just had great spark, and then just got their information, gave them my card, and then followed up and recruited as a result. So this is what we touched on a little bit earlier, and that is that the title may take it. And just like Annette, if we use Annette as our reference point, I don't know that if Debbie and Liz were saying, hey, we need somebody to do sales, or had promoted or posted an ad for sales, then Annette would have been the person to raise her hand and say, hey, I'm going to do that. And I think in several of these groups, if you look at those, with the exception of perhaps the retired sellers, but will come forward for jobs that are not necessarily a sales title because they don't know and they don't want to be car salesmen, right? And whenever people say things like sales, this is what some of those groups and those life stage groups attribute to the word sales. So many great sellers have never really thought of themselves as a sales position, and then they wouldn't apply for one. So we encourage you to think of titles like marketing specialist or community outreach, brand ambassador. Annette talked about when she was talking about skills and attributes and folks to recruit for, folks who can act as a business consultant or a community advisor or a business facilitator, market communication specialists. And if you think about all of the things that these folks have to do as they steward your brand, all of these titles actually fit, right? Because they're promoting your brand, they're introducing businesses to your brand, you want them to attend events, you'd like them to be actively networking in the community, which is community outreach. I mean, any of these things evolve and fall into that. And at the end of the day, marketing is sales. So I have always, I shouldn't say I have always, but I have throughout my career had marketing as part of my title and had responsibility for marketing. And the PR and marketing brand establishment side of the business was certainly a piece, but sales was the primary.
Right. I wear so many different hats. I mean, sometimes I'm a marketing consultant. Sometimes I'm an advertising copywriter. Sometimes I'm a networker. Sometimes I get people together. If I have the other day, a new restaurant opened in town and just down from the museum. And I said, and the museum's my client. And I know they have a lot of functions, which they have catering or food trucks. And I said, you need to call Michael because you're perfectly suited to help them out. You're just down the block. You've got interesting ethnic food. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff these people love to hear from me, and they can act on it, and I make the introductions. And so when I come around knocking on their door and say, oh yeah, are you ready to advertise yet? They take my call because they know it's not just all about me or all about getting the dollar and getting the sale. Everybody, we want to help everybody succeed.
Absolutely.
So someone has to come up with a good title for that kind of a job. We haven't figured it out yet.
Yep. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about just how to do job postings and tips for job postings. And I think one key factor is also remember that you're selling people on you and you've got to sell them on your mission. Annette talked about how Debbie and Liz shared with her the importance of the work that they do and what they were trying to accomplish in the market. I pulled this from the Riverhead local site, and this is actually under their advertising, but I thought that this was it was really short and sweet and to the point. It's very direct. It's not, wrapped up in some sort of high level communication, but you get a really good sense of what they're trying to do and what they stand for from reading this. They say Riverhead Local is like your business, an authentically local business. And they, talk through, we're serious about helping your business thrive, and something we can do for you is whatever we can do for you without costing an arm and a leg. And we care about quality of life here and the quality of education and opportunities for commerce and protecting our environment. And so they really go into a great explanation of how important the market is to them and what they're doing, what they stand for. We live here, we love our town, we want to see it prosper and grow. So a really great example of just being very specific about what the mission is, but not making the person that you are recruiting actually have to hunt and peck for this. I say, put your mission, put what you stand for, a good explanation of what you're doing on the job posting, because the job posting is what's drawing them in. It's making them want to contact and work with you. Another tip is to start by telling them who they'll work with. So I pulled this example from Help Scout, which is just a startup company, but they include on all their, and this is actually off of one of their job postings, They actually include on all of their job postings, not only what, here's who we are, here's who you are, and here's who you'll work with. And here's who you work with is really important. If you are hiring folks who are just starting their careers, they want to know who they're going to be working with, what kind of experience that person has had, what kind of experience you have had, and how they can grow and develop as a result of working with you. Likewise, if you're hiring a mom and this mom has been in a professional career before, that mom wants to know the folks that she is working with and how her professional skills fit with their skills and what those nuances are. Retirees and folks in the community want to know who they're going to be involved in if they're working with you. They want to know who you are. They have been invested for a while. Their reputation is really important to them, so they want to know that you are skilled and capable and invested in all the things that are important to them. So this is a great factor for any segment or group that you go after, and certainly folks who have that list of skills and attributes, but maybe don't have business experience or don't have sales experience. They want to know about the folks that they're working with and that there's a good knowledge base there for them to learn. And even if they've got sales experience, but they don't have journalism experience, they want to know who they're working with and what they can capitalize on or that they can get information on to help them have further success. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, sell them on your vision. So many of you today are in a position where you're running a small business, but you have a vision about where that business can evolve and go to, and that there is a pathway and a roadmap to get there. This is an example from a job posting from a company called Pop Expert. That's in a bit of a growth phase, but they do a really great job of laying out that we have a mission, and then here's how we spend time activating our networks, and here's where we're going, and here are folks that think that we're that we're on the right path. They've listed some of the folks they've got investment from, but many independent publishers have boards of advisors, and you can certainly list those. It's affiliations and connections, and a pathway to the future, an option for vision for the future. And then lastly, we both encourage you to actually post it. So we have both
advertise on your own website.
yeah, who have said they're really looking to hire someone. They want to bring on a seller, and we'll ask, well, what's the difficulty? And, have you posted it? No. Have you posted it on your site? No. Have you put the word out? So many of this starts with a little bit of, well, I've let a couple of folks know that I might want to hire a seller, or I might want to bring somebody on to do sales. But absolutely, the person who's already on your site is the best target for you. And if you're promoting something, I said, promote an ad, say, hey, we're growing, or we're looking for folks to help us market and impact the local community. Join us, let's have a cup of coffee. Annette said, hey, just do you love reading BaristaNet? Do you like, or are you a fan of our site? If so, perhaps you want to work with us, and let's chat. So not incredibly difficult to do, just an action that you have to do. And then also consider offering things like part-time, flexible hours, job sharing. And Annette brought this forward, which I thought was really good. In local markets and through trade, you have the ability to get into free shows and meals and tickets or press passes. And so those parts of the job can entice folks to come on board.
Right. And with the expertise that you and your salesperson bring when you are paying a visit to people, they're going to say, come here, experience a show. Come here, experience a meal. Here, we're having an open house. Come and see this. And they consider you as a resource and a valuable resource. And it pays, everything pays off. It's all a circle, of karma, good karma coming back to you.
Hey, Eleanor and Annette, this is Joe Misha. To build on, I just want to build on that a little bit. I've heard from publishers a lot who when you find out why they didn't post an ad on their site, they kind of don't want to deal with the incoming applications because have to go through them all and reject people. And I think that's something people really need to get over, is to accept the fact that you're going to post if you're going to aggressively look for somebody to sell for you, it's going to be a process, and you need to be looking out for your own business and not worrying about having to turn somebody down or whatever. It's a complicated process, but you kind of have to go into it full blast.
Yeah, and I would say personally, the way I would handle that is if I put a job posting, I say, please call, because this is a business where you spend a lot of time on the phone. If they cannot articulate their interest and passion for or desire to work for you well on the phone, that's the first bar. If they can pass that and you say, great, you sound interesting, sounds like there's something we can talk about, send me your resume, and then set up a meeting.
That's a great point.
That's right. And so I love the notion of I'll be so flooded with people responding that I'll have, a gazillion resumes. And what a great story for somebody that you bring on for sales to be able to go out and tell other folks. We posted one job posting to say, hey, are you interested in coming to work for Annette? We got 1,000 responses. Wow, we really were. But the bottom line is that if you want to hire somebody to do sales, you have to screen them and talk to them.
Right.
So they talk to them or get no money.
Yeah, and if you want someone who's going to work full time, you're going to have to offer some kind of a drawn commission, some guaranteed pay to start off with, because it's not really a full time job. It's something built around a schedule that's part time, I think, and just the nature of the business as well. And if you're getting started, especially, I think you need to at least offer a base salary for the first couple of months to get them started and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly all depends on situation and what you're looking for. So, I go back again to the reason, Annette, that we recommended some of looking at candidate pools in some of those groups because of, in many cases, an inability to offer a salary or those things out of the gate. So
true. Yeah.
So I think with that, we'll open it up for questions if there are any. Maybe just from Joe.
How do I weigh in here?
Excuse me?
John, go ahead. You're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Eleanor, and hello, Annette, and hello, Joe. It's nice to see you all or hear you all again.
Likewise.
I'm in a somewhat more fortunate than I was a year or two ago when I met some of you folks, because I do have a part-time seller, but she's just not able to take me the distance. And so I'm back I'm about to go back into the market looking for someone. These are great points about these categories of potential sellers. And I think my strongest takeaway from this conversation may be to look at the service industry, particularly wait staff, young wait staff just out of college, living at home. That might be a good pool for me. But I think I still bring dread to this process because I still don't really know how to find these people other than to just sort of keep throwing a fishing line into a very large ocean or large oceans. I was successful only by virtue of serendipity the first time around, and that took years to find my first seller. I suppose if you had any more pointed tips on how to do this, you'd have already have offered them. But
well, I can say something. I mean, personally, I would look at within your own social and professional network. I'm really high on the stay-at-home business moms who are going on another venture of their life and another stage of their careers. church, people you know at church, people who are in the PTA, people who are your kids' brownie leaders, other entrepreneurs who work for themselves who might want to add to their income. There's a lot of people in Montclair that are artists who do their own thing, or who have a jewelry business that they import stuff and organize that out of their house, but they might have extra time and they know about sales and business. If you're part of the Rotary, if you're part of the Chamber of Commerce, there might, you run into people, talk to people, find out what they're doing, and say, hey, you might be a good person. Would you like to do this? Yeah. Talk to people at local junior colleges, at the employment offices, maybe, see if they know of anybody.
Good thought. Thank you.
John, do you have a posting running on Red Bank Green?
Not at the moment. I'm in the process of retailoring a lot of my collateral materials. I'm thinking that I really want to hone the professionalism of what I can offer to someone. So I haven't really embarked on this yet.
Mm-hmm. So I would,
in a formal way.
Obviously, as is illustrated in our last slide, I think that's the first place I recommend you start. If you have a part-time seller that you like who's been doing some good work for you, I would ask her or him if they have any friends.
Right.
Referrals are great. Do you know anybody else that you'd like to work with, et cetera? And then again, I'm a big fan of both of those groups, the mom group and then the service industry group. The service industry is great because if you have if you are a frequent eat outer, right? If you're frequently out eating or drinking or having a coffee or whatever, it's really easy at that point to say, hey, golly, I think you have a great attitude and you seem to be so bright and sharp. Have you thought about a career in media? I'd love to talk with you. And here's my card, right? And many of them are quite flattered, and folks don't typically recruit service industry folks. And many times they're looking for a way to break into a career, but it's easy to just, sort of elevate or pitch that and use that as a recruiting space.
Right.
Yeah.
So many times, very often they'll talk.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just keep talking.
That's it. I think that's the key, is to talk to everybody, and
it is,
and just become an absolute obnoxious bore about it.
I mean, it's true. You have to ask. It's true. It's ridiculous, but you ask other business folks in the marketplace. Hey, do you have any salespeople that come in that you think do a really good job or that you really like? I think I'm looking for somebody to represent the brand and to market and do sales for us. Do you know anybody that you think might be good? And, and then you can put them through, John, if you have challenges with some of those things, and we can certainly talk about this a little bit further. And Joe Michaud, if you're still on the phone, this might be helpful. There are some basic sort of, we'll call them, like, I hate to say tasks. There are some basic sort of things that you can kind of put them through. Say you have to know how to do these things too. And then you have some objective work to be able to say, well, I interviewed folks, but I had some folks who also performed a little bit better on this. They were able to do Excel, or they wrote something, or they did something, or they, some of those things. You can apply some other things. So having to tell people no isn't so difficult,
Right.
But the other factor is if they're independent contractors and they will represent the brand well, they will work for commission. I'm like, why just get one? If you have multiple people interested, bring them on board.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can only manage so much at once, but let's see. But having had the experience of dealing with one person, I think I am ready to bring on at least one more.
Yeah, I mean, they might just start out with one sale. You might identify someone who has ties to an organization that you like, or who would benefit from advertising. If they can make that one sale, and you say, okay, I'll pay you a commission on that sale, and get them started. One client at a time.
Yeah. Good point.
Because like me, they might not know they were a salesperson.
That's true. Very good.
Yeah. They'll find out it's easier, because they're using their relationships.
And And John, this is Joe again. And we have talked about this a lot, I know, and I just would encourage you to keep at it. It's like any kind of sales process is just the fact that it didn't work one time, or you keep doing the same thing and nothing happens doesn't mean you should stop doing it. And and just hope it just keep throwing the shotgun out there.
Okay.
Yep.
Annette, Eleanor, this is Anthony at ethnicnj.com. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm also approaching the whole developing the sales side with trepidation, so all of these suggestions are thought-provoking and very helpful. I had a few questions. One, I'm connected through Broad Street Ads to their platform. I'm wondering if either of you or others on the call have had experience or success sharing advertisers through that platform. And I wonder if you had any thoughts. My site is not so much hyper-local, although many of my potential advertisers might be hyper-local, but my scope is statewide. So I wonder if you have any thoughts or reflections on the kinds of salespeople that could connect with statewide advertisers as well. Mm-hmm. And finally, Annette, what's the new ethnic restaurant by the museum?
Yeah, Fusion Empanada.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I do work with Broad Street, and we tried to do a network sale. Actually, Kenny came to me with a client, which was Harrah's Casino in Atlantic City. You've probably seen their ads for online gambling. And so we got about eight advertisers together, and I was kind of spearheading that process. And they did one test drive with us, and it wasn't too successful, probably because we don't have the right demographic for them. I don't know who does online gambling, but evidently not our readers. And it's very problematic. That has to be their one job if they're going to spearhead kind of network sales like that, because you have to have a certain consistency throughout all the different websites in terms of ad size, ad availability, cost. It has to be, they all have to have a certain format and a certain way of operating that is, you don't have to explain it 5 times if there's 5 networks or 10 times if there's 10 networks. And that takes a lot of work. So right now, we haven't pursued that.
It is something.
Have you done any cross?
Sorry.
I was just going to ask Annette if Annette's done any cross-selling on a one-off basis or one-by-one rather than network.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, right now, I sell advertising space on 2 Board of Ed websites, one in Verona, one in Caldwell. And because we have the platform and we have the sales contacts, they came to me or they came to Kenny came to me, and we all kind of had a meeting of the minds and decided I would be the best person to do this because we have families, we have connections in the local community, and we're going to have customers who will want access to a public school demographic, very targeted, very hyper targeted, very local, and can be very profitable. So we're doing that. And I've had a couple of, once or twice, a couple of other bloggers who came to me and said, well, I have an advertiser who wants to advertise on your website. I go, fine. And, we just do the negotiation. I give them the price. And what they're, tell them, I typically just tell them, add in your commission on top of our rates, and then give me this is what I need. Give me the dates, give me the ad, and we go to town. It's really quite easy. So depends.
So Anthony, I'll share the notion of a network is still in play. It's still something that's on the table. And I've had a conversation with Kenny probably a month ago about having now enough knowledge based on some experience that he had with Annette and trying to get some things forward. I'm having enough experience now to know what it would take to get a group of folks to be willing to go together. And it is a consistent ad unit size, availability of inventory. We talked about a floor rate, et cetera. And I think that in the near future, you'll see a set of like guidelines that are coming through to say we would have to all agree, this is what it would take to do it. Do you agree and want to be part of it or not? And I think we are hoping to have a bit of that conversation in or around the Sales Academy that is coming. I think there's more to come on that. In an ideal state, it feels like there's such a great network in New Jersey, and you've got the News Commons, and there are such great connections that it feels like there's got to be a way to make a cross-selling and an ad network sharing opportunity work. It's just getting it established, to Annette's point.
Right.
Great. Now I look forward to hearing more about that, because my site, the scope is statewide, so I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah.
I think sorry, go ahead, Eleanor.
Oh, the other thing that I would share with you in terms of recruiting is I think that recruiting from those same groups is still applicable. The difference is really in how they're going to have to approach their prospects and the value proposition and story that they put into place. And so understanding what you think you'll have to guide them a bit more in where you see the opportunity around the mission. I would look at a bit. Vermont Digger is a statewide site. They do incredibly well at sales. vtdigger.com, I think they're .com. They might be a .org. But I would reference them and just get a look at their site to see what kind of ads you see on there from a state site. And then potentially when you're getting closer to hiring someone, maybe reach out to them. And any one of us can give you a recommendation on someone to talk to there, just about where they've had success with hiring. But I know that they've got a seller or two, and their seller, I think their primary seller is even listed on the website. And they've had very good sales success, and they've been able to overcome that statewide approach. And again, I think that really just comes down to the strategy and the approach that you deploy. It's far different than what Annette does in terms of building the relationship within this community and actually building a broader base network across the state where folks can have impact and where this content and interest area applies.
Yeah, I would look, if I were you, and I would look at regional networks, not rather than a statewide network, because you're focusing on restaurants, and people will travel maybe an hour to go to a restaurant, and so you could draw a circle around the epicenter of each region and try and work with whoever's in those regions, maybe divide the state up into 5 or something, and approach it that way.
Yeah, no, multiple sellers in multiple geographies makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that's the appeal of perhaps partnering with local sites, because they have, you guys have the hyper local presence,
right?
And we don't necessarily compete; we overlap.
Right.
Yeah.
Anthony, there are also a number of models out there that look at, we've got this content, so we offer our inventory available for you to sell, right? So you expand the sales opportunity network or area for somebody like Annette. And then there's a revenue share on that works. So it's a very typical, I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it. It's a typical vendor-esque relationship where you are the content vendor and create the content that they're able to sell. They can they can cross-sell the brand. In some cases, potentially even frame in the content. If it has appeal to them in the local market or in the region, to Annette's point, and then work on a revenue split on what is sold. And so those obviously really tip in favor to the selling side of the equation, because they've got the salesperson, they've got the liability, they're doing the billing or the collecting, et cetera. But there are several established models that work really well with that approach.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Annette, I'll contact you and maybe we can talk offline.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. If there are no more questions,
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Yeah, this,
Thanks, everybody.
will be up online along with the video from yesterday. If you're looking to go to the MJ News Commons YouTube channel, if you'd like to revisit anything that we discussed today or yesterday. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
thanks
Bye.
everybody.